Dwelling may not be a permanent residence or domicile of the defendant party, or he may not be the owner thereof. Di kailangan na permanenteng naninirahan siya doon or siya mismo ang may-ari. The offended party may be actually living or dwelling therein even for temporary duration or purpose. The accused need not actually enter the dwelling of the victim if he has means to perpetrate the assault from the outside. For example, baril, no? Pwede niya barilin ang tao doon sa kanyang pamamahay kahit na hindi na kailangan pumasok ng offender. Dwelling is not included in the qualifying circumstance of treachery. So, hindi siya parte, no, ng qualifying circumstance of treachery. Dwelling is an aggravating circumstance even if committed not in the dwelling of the victims. So for example, the victim is raped in her boarding house. Kahit na hindi niya bahay yun, pero yung pagiging border niya, yung kwarto niya, ay consider yan na rest and comfort. The victims are said to be raped in the paternal home where they were guests. If the victim is a visitor in the house and he was killed in the said house, then it is not considered as an aggravating circumstance. So, hindi kagaya dito, no? Rape in the paternal home. So, sa bahay ng kanyang ama, rape siya. At saka guest siya doon. So, pero ang situation, kung ang biktima ay visitor ng isang bahay, hindi bahay ng kanyang ama, at saka pinatay siya doon, so that cannot be considered as aggravating circumstance. Victims are said to be shot to death while sleeping as guests in the house. So in this case, makonsider natin na aggravating circumstance of dwelling. The provocation in the aggravating circumstance of dwelling refers to a situation where the provocation was given by the owner of the dwelling. And the provocation should be sufficient. And it should be immediate to the commission of the crime. So, bunga ng provocation kung kaya't ginawa ang krimen ng offender laban sa biktima. Pero pag hindi to siya immediate to the commission of the crime, then it is considered still as aggravating circumstance of dwelling kahit na mayroong provocation. So you have to understand, you have to take note that if these three requisites are present, itong tatlo na to ay present sa patungkol sa provocation, so ang dwelling ay hindi natin makonsider na aggravating circumstance. The provocation must have close relation to the commission of the crime in dwelling. So dapat para merong matawag na provocation, dapat konektado to siya sa krimen na ginawa ng offender laban sa biktima. Pag wala siyang close relation, kahit na merong provocation na ginawa ang biktima, pero ang pagsugod ng offender laban sa kanya ay hindi konektado sa kanyang provocation, meron pa ring aggravating circumstance of dwelling. Dwelling is not considered as aggravating circumstance if the offender and the offended party are occupants of the same house. So, kung ang offender at saka offended party ay naninirahan sa isang pamamahay, then hindi natin makonsider ang aggravating circumstance of dwelling. Ang exception dito ay ang krimen na adultery, na ang krimen ay ginawa mismo doon sa pamamahay nila mag-asawa. Aggravating circumstance yan. So, if the paramour, ang kabit ng wife, also dwells in the conjugal dwelling, not dwelling as aggravating circumstance, but abuse of confidence. Kung ang paramour, na sinasabi natin kabit ng wife, ay naninirahan din sa bahay ng mag-asawa, ang aggravating circumstance dito ay hindi dwelling, kundi abuse of confidence. In robbery with force upon things, so robbery with force upon things, dwelling is inherent. So, meaning, part na yan. So, hindi na natin ma-consider pa na aggravating circumstance kasi ang robbery with force upon things, kailangan ang krimen na to, para masabi natin na makomit, kailangan pinasok ang bahay. So, meaning to say, part ng robbery with force upon things, ang dwelling. Kaya, inherent aggravating circumstance yan. Kaya, hindi na kailangan na meron pang aggravating circumstance ito. Kasi part na to siya. Inherent na to siya sa crime. In robbery with violence against or intimidation of persons, dwelling can be considered as aggravating circumstance. Kasi ang robbery with violence against or intimidation of persons, hindi naman kailangan na doon sa pamamahay ng biktima gawin ang krimen. Sa robbery with homicide, dwelling is considered as aggravating circumstance. So, dwelling is not considered as aggravating circumstance also in trespass to dwelling. Kasi ang dwelling dito ay part sa krimen. So, it is not considered as aggravating circumstance. The owner of the dwelling gave sufficient and immediate provocation. So, nasabi na natin. The victim is not a dweller of the house. So, walang aggravating circumstance of dwelling. Kasi, hindi naman siya nakatira sa bahay.